And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Stubble McShave, who writes, I read on Indiewire that Nolan had received criticism about his sound design from other filmmakers. They thought it, at times, was too loud and that it was hard to hear some of the dialogue, among other criticisms. Nolan responded to the criticism that he thought they were just conservative and more or less ignored their critique. Do you think it comes across as a bit arrogant for him to just ignore the criticism from both general moviegoers and his peers? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in. And yeah, listen, in the post-mortem of Tenet, a lot of people loved it. Some people thought it was okay. Some people didn't like it. But amongst all three of those groups, there seemed to be some general agreement that there was an issue in the movie with audio. Audio did for a lot of people seem to be an issue, whether it was like really unbalanced things where certain things were way super loud, some jarbling in the dialogue. Some people had a hard time understanding and deciphering the dialogue. I think there was one or two scenes where that was intentional, but then there were other scenes when it wasn't, that it was difficult. Anyway, if you're one of the people who felt that way, you're not alone. Even other filmmakers were so bold as to get a hold of Christopher Nolan and let him know about it. This comes to us, and Christopher Nolan was talking to Indiewire, said, we got a lot of complaints, Christopher Nolan said. I actually got calls from other filmmakers who would say, I just saw your film, and the dialogue is inaudible. Some people thought maybe the music's too loud, but the truth was it was kind of the whole enchilada of how we had chosen to mix it. So basically, Christopher Nolan says, yeah, we had a number of filmmakers call me. It wasn't just hearing it from fans. There were filmmakers who got a hold of me and said, dude, there's a problem with your audio. The levels are off in certain places, and it's just too hard in too many places to discern what's being spoken on screen. To which Christopher Nolan replied, I get it, but this is how we chose to sound mix it. This is the experience he wanted to create. The question is, does that make him arrogant? Does it make Christopher Nolan arrogant to say, well, this is just the way we wanted to do it? And I'm going to say something here that I think might surprise some people. I actually really don't think it is. Now, remember, I am one of the guys that I had an issue with the audio in Tenet. I enjoyed Tenet. I liked it. But yes, I thought an audio was one of the significant problems with the movie. You guys heard me talk about that before. I don't need to go all into it again. But as somebody who had a problem with the audio in the movie, I don't think it's arrogant for Christopher Nolan to say that. Listen, we always cry and scream and complain that we need to let the filmmakers make their films, right? Whenever a studio gets involved, no studio interference, let the artist make his art. We're always like that, right? Sometimes maybe too much so, but we are kind of like that. Artists make art that are expressing an inner vision that they have. And if Christopher Nolan, let's face it, this audio issue in Tenet is not new. We have seen this in a couple of his other films as well. Some audio issues, right? But we've come to believe that, and I hope he changes it. I do. I hope he changes it moving forward. But if that is his inner vision and how he wants to express it as an artist, then damn it, even if I don't like it, that's how I feel that's the way he should do it. And I say that as a guy that didn't like the audio in Tenet, and I hope he changes it. But at the end of the day, he's the filmmaker. And if he's got a way of how he wants his films to play and how they present, and it's a little different from how we're used to it, maybe it's a little different from how we like it. But if that's how he does it, I don't believe that makes him arrogant. I just believe that makes him an artist who's got a vision and he wants to carry out his vision. And so maybe he'll make another film and I'll complain again, Rob. Maybe I'll complain again about his next film and his audio mix and whatever. And would it have been totally fine for him to go, I'm hearing a lot of people talk about this and I'm going to make some adjustments because I want to make sure what I'm trying to say comes across accurately. I wouldn't have had any problem if he said that either. So at the end of the day, no, I don't think him saying, this was my vision. My job is to put my vision on the screen. And that's how I like to do it. honestly, I don't think that makes him arrogant. Rob, as a filmmaker yourself who has had to go through the process of the editing and the audio and the mixing and figuring all this stuff out, what did you make of Christopher Nolan's comments?
Well, okay, this is not the first time. I remember the controversy in Dark Knight Rises when people couldn't hear Bane and they went back and they actually did mixing. I mean, I think Nolan has this. Look, as the viceroy of verisimilitude, the self-appointed viceroy of verisimilitude, as I call myself, or actually somebody hung that on me, so I wasn't self-appointed. I think he's going for a certain effect. He's trying to create a realism. And in the real world, when you're out walking down the street, everything is not always audible. If somebody's walking ahead of you and they're trying to talk to you, but they're not looking over their shoulder, it's very hard to hear what people say. So I think he's trying to go for a certain realism, and he does that. That's why he does not like to use CG. You know, he likes, and I appreciate that about his movies, that there's a realism to them. And when he does use visual effects, it's only in support of that realism. That the plane heist sequence, or when they crash that plane in the beginning of Dark Knight Rises, is incredible. That sequence is incredible because it's real. Or the hallway fight in Inception, when they built the hallway on a gimbal. They do some really amazing stuff. However, that said, if somebody says something in a movie, I really believe that if you have to ask yourself as an audience member, wait, what did they say? It takes you out of the film. So the same way that he's trying to create a realism by not using CG, his grasping at realism in terms of his sound design is, I think, maybe a little misguided. Because if you have dialogue in a film, if you're going to allow a character to speak, even if you have to, make sure that the character isn't, if a character wouldn't be as audible in real life, when you go to the movies, you should be able to hear a character's line of dialogue, because if you can't, it takes you out of it. You're like, wait, what? And so to me,
and you fall behind as an audience member, you fall behind in the story.
You fall behind. And also, it also makes your immersion in the film stops, because then you don't know what is said. You turn to your friend or whatever. What did he say? And I think that shatters the very illusion of reality that Christopher Nolan is so good at achieving. I think he's letting himself down with his sound design. And I'm perplexed by it. I've been perplexed by it since Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, I don't disagree. But the question becomes, as a filmmaker, if that's the style he likes to create, does it make him arrogant for not wanting to do it the way the rest of us kind of wish he would do it?
Well, I don't know if it makes him arrogant. Well, I wouldn't say arrogant is the word, because I think that he's trying to achieve something. I just think what he's trying to achieve is with his sound design, I think it's misguided. I think because he's not being arrogant. He actually, well, I mean, all filmmakers have you have to be arrogant in some ways, yes, to make a movie. But I don't think he's being arrogant. I think he has a style that he has been refining for a long time. And this is what he's going for. But I think it's misguided. I think that eventually he's going to learn that, he knows what's being said, and I understand. But when the audience, John, whenever you show your movie to somebody, if one person gives you a criticism, you're like, whatever. But if 10 people give you a criticism, then you have to address this, because then it becomes a thing. And I think it's a thing now with him. I think he should address the sound design in his films, especially with one that's as complex as Tenet. I haven't seen it, but I've heard. So
yeah, I mean, the thing that it especially becomes highlighted in a movie like Tenet, because there is so much going on in Tenet, and its narrative moves at such a breakneck pace that if you miss one line, you're falling 5 steps behind the story.
Yeah.
And that was a part of my experience watching the film, is that sometimes because I didn't quite get, again, there are scenes in the movie where the audience isn't supposed to really know what's being said. I got that. But there are times when we were, and when you didn't, you fell behind. And that is something that, I say it as a fan, I hope he changes. But I mean, He's a filmmaker. He's one of the best. And if this is how he's locked into it, he's probably never going to change. So we'll see how it goes. Question is, guys, what do you think about that? Maybe you're one of the people who you saw Tenet. You're like, I don't know what everybody's talking about. I understood everything perfectly clearly. I've heard from some people say that. Maybe you're like us, where you thought, sometimes his audio gets a little way on him. Not in all of his films, but sometimes. What do you think about it? Jump into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys.